Hey, what's up guys? Tuki here, back again. Now I'm going to get right into this because as it is, this video is going up much later than I would have wanted. Originally, this video was meant to be me showing off the updated and custom rosters, as well as letting you know that there would be a poll in the description so that you guys could vote on what team I'm going to use next in franchise mode. However, there's a change of plan because when I was going through what teams I wanted to include in the poll, there was one team that really stood out, and I've decided that, you know what, I want to use this team. Of course, you guys know I love to get your opinion, and I want to, provide the series that you want to see, but this team's been requested in the past quite a bit, and now's the right time. Now's the right time to use them. Now, if it's not the team that you were looking forward to, of course, don't worry, whether it's on NHL 18 or whether it's, live on Twitch. I might just, use like one of the other teams and, have just a stream specific sim with that team. So if this isn't the team you were looking forward to me using, I apologize, but if you follow me on Twitch, that might still happen. But anyway, what you can do is you can watch the rest of the video as was planned with the, me showing off the custom rosters, or you can click on or go to, I don't think you can click on it because the annotations are weird now, but you can go to the timestamp listed in the video. Right now it'll be on screen, wherever. Go to that timestamp as a part of this video, and you will find out what team I am using next in NHL 17. So I hope I don't disappoint too many people, but I think it's going to be a pretty damn fun series. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will I'll see you in a little bit, or immediately if you decide to skip forward. Anyway, let's get right down to business here. But before I do that, listen to me. Are you listening? Good. You better be. You're going to see overalls that you disagree with. You're going to see potentials that you disagree with. And that is fine. I'm not saying my rosters are the end-all, be-all, the definitive rosters that they're 100% perfect, and if you disagree, go fuck yourself. Like, I'm not saying that, alright? But believe me, I have put the time in, particularly with the players at the NHL level, and the AHL level for that matter, looking up advanced stats. You might, okay, for example, someone like Chris Tanev. I think I have him at an 85, maybe an 86, and people are like, what? But then you look at the individual attributes, and he's an amazing defensive defenseman, just like he is in real life. Overall, and EA has said this before, and they're not wrong, overall isn't everything. So just keep that in mind, alright? Odds are, hey, if you want to point out that someone should have a different potential or different overall, feel free to do so. That doesn't mean, just because you pointed out, that I'm going to change it before we begin the franchise mode. Alright? I'm just saying. Now that we got that out of the way. And, remember too, if you haven't seen one of my other custom roster update videos, there are times where the game kind of glitches out a player's potential. And what I mean by that is you can change someone's potential. You can set it to medium top 9. The second you hit save, the game will change it to low top 6 or high bottom 6. Feel free. Go into your roster, find some random ECHL player, and I'd say probably within 10. Like if you try to change maybe as high as 10 player potentials, one of them will eventually just change itself on its own. So you are going to see potentials that even I might disagree with, but you can't fight the game. It does what it wants to as far as glitching out those potentials. I think that covers everything for the moment. There is going to be a couple of things I forget to say throughout this video, absolutely. Although I will say, because this is, and I'll get to it in a minute, calm down. Restricted free agents. A lot of people were wondering, like, oh, well, what did you do? With restricted free agents like Connor Hellebuyck, you don't change anything. Because the way their contract is right now, they'll be an RFA at the end of the first season. So it's perfect. You don't need to make any changes there. If someone's contract, like Carey Price's, is 10 years or whatever, obviously the max thing I can only do is 8. If somebody, like there were a couple contracts signed this year where like the first year is a 2-way deal, but the second year is a 1-way deal. If there's a 1-way deal involved at any point, I made it a 1-way deal. Stuff like that. I think that covers everything. And if I remember other stuff as we go along, I will let you know. But again, we have created almost 200 players, 29 goalies, 163 forwards. Now look, I haven't added everybody, right? For example, if there are players who are signed to AHL deals only, that just came out of the NCAA, I haven't bothered adding them because why? Also, keep in mind, and this is what I'm talking about, man, there's a lot of info that goes along with this. I started editing these rosters at the very beginning of NHL 17. So you're going to see created players here, someone like a Thatcher Demko, that EA has since added to the game. But just remember, when I started editing these rosters, he wasn't in the game. That's why he's going to show up as a created player. It didn't make sense for me to be like, oh, okay, EA added him to the game. Let me redo every other update change that I've made. No, that wouldn't have made sense. But anyway, again, I'm gonna scroll. You know what? Here, the names are what's important. Potential, overall, all that shit. Who the hell cares? At least you know that they're in the game, right? At least you know, and that is what is important because there's a lot of names, man. There's a lot of names to go through here, whether it's players out of the NCAA like Shane Starrett, guys who came over from the KHL like Nicholas Fedberg or Danny Taylor. There's a lot of names, man, and that glitched out tremendously. And then even then, the forwards, right? Even with the forwards here, I'm going to quickly scroll through. You might recognize the last name with certain players. That were NCAA, like Casey Middlestott, for example. It just made sense to add him to the CHL, right? He's an underage player, so I can't really add him anywhere else. And that goes for pretty much everybody that was drafted. Like, even if it's someone who's in, like, the SHL, I just moved them over to the CHL to make it easier. Also, for players that were drafted this year, there are some that I could actually move to the real team that they were drafted by. Like Nolan Patrick, for example, is 18 years old at the start of this game. So I could move him to Philly. But I couldn't move Nico Hischier to New Jersey. So any top players, I haven't moved to the team that drafted them, right? So we're going to have the draft pretty much be realistic. With a few exceptions, the one that comes to mind is the other Sebastian Aho that was just drafted by the Islanders. He is on Bridgeport, as he apparently will be in real life this season. So there's a few examples, but, Elias Peterson, Elias Anderson, Miro Heiskanen, like all the top players that were drafted in the first round, they will be in the first year draft, of course. It is just much, much easier to do it that way, as I will just continue to scroll through. But again, this roster is up to date as of July 20th, and if any other changes happen before we officially start the series, I will make sure to add those in. So the Colton Parayko contract is in, someone like Steve Moses signing with the Rochester Americans, that's in, all that stuff. But anyway, we've scrolled through all of that. We have a lot of stuff to get to here. We have a lot of stuff to get to. Now, the free agent list, I'm not going to scroll through because who the hell cares? You already know who's a free agent. Guys like Yager are there and stuff like that. But again, you're not going to agree with all of these overalls and stuff like that or the potentials, and that's fine. And also, I'm just going to scroll through. If you want to look at everybody in depth, you can. Just pause the video at that certain spot, right? That's all you have to do. So you're not going to agree with everything, and that's fine. Again, I'm not saying that these are perfect, right? I'm not. So don't worry. But I know people, like to see the amount of work and everything that I put into these, so yeah, we might as well just go through this. But again, all the contracts are up to date and all that, and I think I pretty much covered everything. Although, the one thing I haven't talked about yet, and this will be one of the more frequently asked questions if I didn't cover it, and if I forgot to mention any specific detail, let me know. I had a live stream last night where I talked about a lot of this, so it is kind of tough to remember everything that I wanted to talk about. The Vegas Golden Knights. Any player that is actually on the Vegas Golden Knights at the moment, what did I do with them? No, I did not put them in the free agent list. That's a bit cheap. A common trick that I use, and I've talked about this in the other videos that I've made. By the way, you might say Mike Smith's salary is wrong. That is not the case. We are factoring in that Arizona retained salary. Same with Eddie Lack, actually. But a common trick to use, like if a player signs in the KHL, or if a player retires and you don't want them to appear in game anymore, the place to move them, and I feel like I missed Calgary's forwards. I didn't, but there you go. The place to move them is to one of the international teams. That way they won't show up. So my international team list, and yes, I am keeping Marian Hossa in because we don't know if his career is over yet. That was a point of contention that I know some people brought up. I am going to leave him in. But international teams is a great place to store those retired players, or those that are like over in the KHL, like Ilya Kovalchuk, for example, because rather than having him show up just as a flat-out free agent, it's just easier to avoid having him in the game to begin with, because that's a very weird situation, right? So every member of the Vegas Golden Knights, and I will show you guys eventually, every member of the Vegas Golden Knights right now is on Team Ukraine. That way I know where they are. In case there's another trade, I know right where they are, and I can just move them over. So, unfortunately, members of the Golden Knights won't be appearing in this mode, but there's really nothing I can do about that, because if I were to leave them all on the free agent list, then they just get signed, and that wouldn't exactly be realistic to just let James Neal sign with Arizona, or whoever the hell signs him, right? So, and not that this game's the most realistic, but I will say, you know, the last mode that we're doing here, it is going to kind of be just a straightforward sim, no fantasy draft or anything like that. So, I am intrigued to see how that goes. We got a look on stream last night at how these rosters play out, and it was kind of interesting to say the least. But regardless, one way or another, the AI kind of plays out the same way, right? Like, at the end of the first year, you are going to see players hit the free agent list that probably wouldn't in real life. The test stream resulted in Felix Sandstrom, the goalie from the Philadelphia Flyers. He hit free agency, which is ridiculous. Joran Van Pottelberg for the Red Wings hit free agency and was free for the taking. So that is kind of a pain in the ass, but that will continue to happen. And then certain RFAs also hit free agency. Zibanejad was there. Sam Bennett was there. And I know people are going to be like, Dubnyk a 91. Just, who cares? Have you watched my series before? Have you watched my series before where an 85 overall goalie can post a 945 save percentage and lead their team to a cup? Have you seen that? Have you been watching? So, yeah, Dubnyk's a 91. Deal with it. Deal with it. Like I said, you're going to disagree with some of these. And again, I'm not saying that all of these numbers are perfect, right? I'm not saying that. But, like I've said before, in my series, you may just see some players that never make it because of the way EA has their roster set up this year. You might see those type of players make it in my series. And I mentioned guys like Jordan Kyrou in previous videos before the start of other series. But it's weird because I've made a video like this before, and there are a lot of changes, to like contract info and players being on the right team and stuff like that. But I can't claim to have changed a ton of overalls this year. So I don't know, man. It's weird, but like I said, I know people wanted to see these rosters, so here you go. Again, it's not the end-all, be-all. And I will say, and I've said it a million times already, I am really excited for the changes to the rosters in NHL 18, the overall overhaul, with, bottom of the barrel, not bottom of the barrel, but fourth line NHL guys being, 76 overalls. Like, that's going to change the game drastically. And I would have loved to have set up the rosters like that, these rosters like that myself, which, by the way, Jake Gensel, I'll probably make better, to be honest. That's actually somebody who I meant to make. You know what? Fuck it. We'll do it right now before I forget. Actually, I did look at his stats. That's the thing. Like, offensively, he's looking pretty damn good as it is, right? That's the thing. It was just the defense was a little bit weak. And I hear you. You know what? We'll just make him slightly better defensively. That should bump him up to an 83. There you go. 2 points better on defense. And now all of a sudden now he's an 83 and he looks so much better. Not really. He's still the same, still has the same ability offensively, but I meant to bump him up. So there you go. But yeah. Put a lot of time into these, and again, NHL 18, I'm excited. The good thing is, with NHL 18, I won't have to make too many changes aside from the free agent list. Like, I expect that to be the big one, and I honestly expect the AHL rosters, to be a bit of a mess. There are going to be some missing players because they hadn't played an NHL game yet and aren't a part of the NHLPA and stuff like that. So, there are certain limitations that EA have when it comes to making their rosters and what they can do. And I completely understand that. But for someone who really aims for just the most amount of realism I can get, at least as far as players being in the right spot, certain free agents who have maybe retired, because the free agent list this year was an absolute disaster, right? There were so many retired players that were still there. Duplicate players. That was a big thing this year. And again, I talk about it in other videos. There was a tremendous amount of duplicate players this year, meaning that there might have been someone on the free agent list, but they were also on an AHL team at the same time. Needless to say, that causes some issues. So that was a bit of a pain in the ass to deal with, and I expect to have to deal with those type of changes again. We'll see, though. Maybe EA will surprise me and keep the rosters a bit more up to date. But especially, too, when you factor in that roster sharing isn't expected to really be a thing again. Who knows what to expect, really. Now, do I want to go through the AHL? You know what? I might as well, because there are prospects there. We're already here. Let's do it. Of course, the ECHL isn't a factor, because who the hell cares, right? The ECHL doesn't have proper integration to franchise mode. It is completely irrelevant. And I imagine that will be the same thing heading into NHL 18. I haven't heard anything about it, which is pretty concerning. That, again, those rosters are just going to be there for the sake of being there, which is tremendously disappointing. Again, those rosters are basically just those teams are basically just in the game for, hey, here's another nice new jersey you can use in, HUT or EASHL. Which, it is what it is. It is what it is. I've ranted enough about that in the past. But yeah, see, case in point, we have the Sebastian Aho, who was just drafted. But that's the thing, he's 20. Like, he's an overager that was selected by the Islanders. So it's no surprise, of course, that he ended up signing a contract with them immediately. But I look forward to the feedback. I look forward to seeing who wins the poll, that is for sure. I look forward to seeing who wins that poll and what team we will be using in the future. And just don't freak out, too, if you're, like, Matt Finn, for example. I just saw him, and that's why I'm bringing this up. He's signed to an AHL level deal, but from this screen, it looks like I have him signed to Carolina. That is not the case, so don't worry about that either. But, again, as always, I feel like I'm forgetting to bring something up, but not too much I can do about that. If I forget to bring something up, I'm sure one of you, that's the thing, I'm sure there'll be, like one of the top questions is like, oh, well, what about this? And I'll be like, oh, yeah, I meant to talk about that. Let me answer. And I will, and then we'll move on. Pretty simple. Pretty damn simple. But I am excited to see how this plays out beyond the first couple of seasons. Should be interesting. I know on the test sim last night on Twitch, the New York Islanders won the Stanley Cup. The Maple Leafs won the President's Trophy, which might not be too crazy, but the Islanders won the President's Trophy. Or, no, the Islanders won the Stanley Cup, sorry. I'm losing my mind. Islanders won the Cup because Thomas Greiss decided to stand on his head. An 86 to 87 overall goalie, I do believe. I have him set up as. Maybe even an 85. So, there you go. Case in point. Case in point. And we've seen it a million times now in my series themselves, where certain players can just take over a series, dominate, and win their team the cup. So we'll see what happens in that first year. And again, free agent-wise, the big names, of course, are still there. Jágr, Iginla, players like that. We actually used the Winnipeg Jets. They were an alright team to use, and I did put them on the poll. I know that for sure. So we might actually use them for real this time. But again, like I mentioned, I will try to keep the series realistic, quote-unquote. Again, as I've been quoted in saying hundreds of times at this point now, you can only have a mode be so realistic when this game itself isn't exactly a true-to-life sim, right? It's not a franchise hockey manager. It's not in-depth as something like a football manager, the FHM equivalent for FIFA, or not for FIFA, for football. I told you, man, I'm off my game right now, and I apologize. I've had a long day. But you get the point. We'll do what we can. We might make more use of the trading block. There's a couple of different things I have in mind at this point to make things just a little bit more difficult. And you started to see stuff like that with the Red Wings series, and then very, very quickly it spiraled out of control. And if you haven't watched the Red Wings series, then what's the matter with you? Go watch it and you'll see what I mean. As the series started off on a kind of interesting, somewhat realistic note where we clearly lost a certain trade that you would expect, someone to make when you take control of the Red Wings and you're told to rebuild them. Yeah. By the way, I don't think that guy is supposed to be there, but that's okay. He's clearly under an AHL deal. Problem with the Avalanche is they don't have many players signed right now. I think they have the fewest amount of players signed. So there were some AHL rosters that were a little bit difficult to set up very early on into free agency. But like I mentioned, these are pretty much up to date. You do have some players that are technically in the SHL, but it's just easier to put them on the team now, because otherwise it'll kind of reset their contract. Basically, they'll show up as unsigned in franchise mode, which is, again, kind of a pain in the ass. It's just the way the game works, man. I have these rosters set up the way I do for a reason. The little, I guess we'll call them intricacies, but really they're not. The little fucking, the little bullshit aspects of this game and the way it works. Oh, Sebastian Repo was the other one that was just drafted as an overager along with Aho. That's the other guy I was thinking of. But anyway, I think I've pretty much covered it all at this point. And if I haven't, again, you will let me know down in the comments. But I am definitely running out of steam here. There is no doubt about that. But we will carry on. We will make it all the way through, as I did in the past with a video like this, and as we will do again. The Tampa Bay Lightning, by the way, are a bit of a pain in the ass because Cirelli and Dennis Yan instantly get cut by the team. I don't know why. Their contract number should be 49, but the game still lets go of them, so that's kind of a pain in the ass. I'm going to see if I can do anything to fix that. And actually, I'll do that once I'm done with this video. But yeah, slight pain in the ass. But that's how this game works, man. That's how this game works. You're essentially fighting the game itself to try and get as realistic of a roster as you can. So, yeah. But, God, have I covered everything. I always feel like I'm missing stuff, man, in videos like this. Every time. I always feel like I'm missing stuff in videos like this, because it is tough to, as difficult as it can be to try and carry a franchise mode video when you're just simming and there's nothing to talk about, this video is perhaps the most difficult one to make, because there is just nothing to talk about, because I don't want to sit there and be like, oh, well, here's this guy that you'll probably disagree with me on. God damn, the quality here. Nothing but the highest of qualities here. That is my guarantee to you. Nothing but the highest of quality when it comes to my videos, but good Lord, we actually made it through every AHL team. Victory, I do declare. Alright, well, it's looking good. It's looking good. I guess I'll show you the free agent list. Like, prospect-wise for AHL or for CHL players at this point, just I'm not. It's fine. Just know that they've been updated. Someone like Jack Studnicka won't be drafted in the 4th round anymore. So just know that. But other than that, I mean, I'm not going to... You can see how ridiculous the free agent list is right now, just because of how small the meter is. But like I mentioned with the international teams, like Craig Adams is on the free agent list. He's retired, so we move him over to the international team. Bickle is a duplicate. Briz is retired. And then you have Team Ukraine, and there is everybody. Kind of mad I made Jake Bischoff, only for him to be essentially useless. So that's fun. But everybody is there, and unfortunately, you won't be seeing them in the next franchise mode. But guys, I think that covers it. Alright guys, so here we go. We've covered the custom roster. Again, this video was, you know, a little bit different than I planned on it being, but I won't waste any more time. As promised, it is time to reveal what team we will be using in my next series. And I know a lot of you are going to be happy about it. Some of you might be disappointed, but don't worry. That team might be used in the future, in the very near future even. The team I will be using in my next series is...